If you know what you want to do, you wake up every day and you work toward that goal. It's so much easier when you know what you want. This is what I love to do. I made this decision when I was 19 years old. So it's kind of tough talking about my work ethic because for me, there's no days off. There's no holidays.
I laugh every time I hear people saying, yeah, I don't like working for other people, so, I want to work for myself because I want to set my own hours and I want to, yeah. Let me tell you what, when you work for yourself, there are no days, there's no Christmas, there's no Easter, there's none of that when you work for yourself. In the early days, you got to show up every day. Your employees are here working every day. You can't just be this dude who makes a bunch of money and you take off and go on vacation for the whole summer and then come back in September and wonder how everything's going. You got to stay in here and you got to lead your people to where you want this thing to go.
So when these big major holidays come, all these other people that take holidays and they're on vacation, we don't. We keep right on cranking, keep working. We're on the phone every day. Christmas Day, I'm doing stuff.
You're working through all those holidays. Every day something bad happens. Every day there's problems. Every day somebody's trying to you and take what you've built, and you know what I mean? It's a war every day when you get up in the early days.
I have kids too. So the time that I don't spend working, where I'm not physically working, I'm with my kids, hanging out with my kids. I do two things. I work and I hang out with my kids. And when I am with the kids, I am on the phone too. The phone rings and there's stuff that needs to be dealt with. So there is no real downtime. Going on vacation, hanging out with them. My oldest son is a quarterback. He plays football now. I love watching him practice. I love watching him play. And anything that my kids are into, I like watching what they do. I devote so much time and energy to this. When I'm with my kids, I'm their slave. I do whatever they want me to do, whatever they tell me to do, wherever they want to go. The one thing that I realized young is I didn't want to work for anybody else. I wanted to work for myself. So I knew that you have to become an entrepreneur and you have to start your own business. I also knew that I was young enough that if things didn't work out, I could always go back and pave roads and be a bellman at a hotel and things like that. That job was always going to be available. So I took all the risks at a young age. If you don't take risks, you will never succeed, ever. I did some paving early on in my life. That's real work. That's a real job. Like I was like 17, 18 years old. I felt like I had one foot in the grave working that job.
Sure.
And I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. People always ask me, how do you do this and how do you have to do it? I mean, it's when you're building a business like the UFC or any other business, you have to work, and it never gets easier. I had a hardcore upbringing, My mother used to tell me that I was gonna be just like my father and not amount to anything and things like that, and I was gonna be pumping gas into my friends' cars. I wouldn't say that I was always ambitious. When I was a kid, I was your typical kid, and then my mother, she worked a lot, wasn't around, so me and my sister were home a lot alone. We had to clean the house and do all the stuff that you have to do when you're a kid. But one of the things I think about growing up alone is, there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn on your own.
I love all these young people who are trying to do something, entrepreneurial and anything I can ever do to help, I love it.
We all make mistakes. People are going to make mistakes, and when you make the mistakes, it's how you handle yourself after you make that mistake. Do you come clean? Are you honest? Do you say, listen, I messed up and I made a mistake. We're all humans, man. We're going to make mistakes. It's how you handle yourself after you make that mistake.
But once you get to a certain level of success, you have to keep your hands on the wheel and you have to keep steering. The ship gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but you got to keep steering it in the right direction. When you're losing money, everybody wants to point the finger at whose fault it is. And then when it turns around and you start making money, everybody wants to say, it's me, me, me. And then you start having differences in opinions, and you see all these great things break up because of ego. It's so true, and it's one of the things that I always say, loyalty and not forgetting what you thought and where you were and when you started,
is so important in business.
And if you believe in what you're doing and you believe and you truly love what you're doing, you don't let anything get in your way. I mean, there's so many things that can derail you on your coming. Number one, the first and foremost is your ego.
Ego and that type of stuff ruins some of the greatest products, some of the greatest businesses, some of the greatest friendships, bands, and it's just completely unnecessary.
There's so many different ways that you could get sideways with your partners, like me and the Fertitta brothers. We never allowed that to happen. We're as close now as we were back then, and that's the major key to success. There was never any infighting over any of that stuff. So, it needed all three of us to do what we did and to build it into what it is today. It's so silly. If you look at all the things that have been super successful that have blown up over ego, you're telling me Guns N' Roses couldn't get back together and play? You know how much money those guys lost, and how many people didn't get to see them play? It's all because of ego. Do you really hate these guys that bad? You got together at one point and liked each other and created something incredible.
It's about respect. It's about loyalty. It's about treating each other right, and and keeping your ego in check.
I can't see myself retiring. Why would I retire? You know what I mean? I love what I do. Fly all over the world, stay in the nicest hotels, eat in the best restaurants, and have the best seats in the world for the greatest fights on earth. It was fun, actually. When I look back on all that stuff now, and I think about, we talk about it all the time. We talk about a lot of the stuff from the old days, and this is just a completely different world now, man. This place was crazy. But first of all, I'm obviously 20 years older than I was when we started this thing, so I was a lunatic in the early days. And when you're building something like this, you that has to be your mindset. You have to remember, you're doing what you love to do, and remember why you got into this and how it all started and who did what. And I love breaking records. I love taking the sport and the business to new levels, and this is what it's all about for me. Everything that encompasses this event, I'm excited about. It's always about the belt. One of the things that people don't realize until they get it. The money comes once the belt comes.
Yes.
And the belt is the key to open everything. Your entire life changes once you are the UFC heavyweight champion. There's a lot of that goes on for me, on fight night. We have tons of sponsors that come back to my room, people that I have to, take care of that night. You want to make sure you want to show everybody a great time. And then, the production has to be perfect. The fights have to be great. It's incredible. I mean, if you think about it, all the fights and all the titles and all the belts that I've slapped around places, it's such a huge honor. The one thing that I can always say that I was very lucky is I always knew what I wanted to do.